Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I didn't even flinch when she said it. Maybe I should have. Maybe any normal man would have blown up, demanded answers, asked what she was lacking, what I wasn't giving her, who he was. But I just sat there, blinked once, and looked at her. Just for a little while, she added quickly. Not forever. Not even long. Just enough for me to feel something different. You know. I don't know what she expected. Rage? A fight? A speech about how real marriages don't need to outsource intimacy? Instead, I asked her if she wanted more wine. She blinked like she didn't hear me. I stood up and poured her another glass, sat back down, and waited. That was her cue to backpedal if she was going to. But she didn't. She reached for the wine, sipped it, then stared into the glass like it would give her courage. I just think, if we don't explore this now, we'll regret it later, she said. We're still young, relatively. I mean, don't you ever feel like we settled too soon? We've been married for 7 years. Together for 10. Settled too soon? That was a hell of a thing to say after a decade of Sundays and shared grocery lists. Still, I didn't say anything. I just watched her. That made her nervous. Not that I'm saying I'm not happy, she added. I am. With you. I love you. I do. But I feel like I've been craving something different for a long time, and I didn't know how to talk about it. And now that I've finally said it, I don't want to run from it. I remember the flickering candlelight on her face. We were at our anniversary dinner, believe it or not. She'd suggested the place. Picked the wine. Wore that deep green dress she knew I liked, the one with the thin straps and low back. She looked beautiful. And maybe she knew it. Maybe she picked tonight, our night, because she'd feel prettier telling me this with wine on the table and compliments still echoing in the air. Maybe she thought the glow of a restaurant would soften the blow of betrayal. Or maybe she didn't see it as betrayal at all. I sat back and let the silence stretch, just to see if she'd fill it. She didn't. Just for a little while, she repeated, whispering this time. We can have rules. Total honesty. Full communication. No emotional attachments, just freedom. Freedom. That's what she called it. Funny thing about freedom, it's only free when you're the one leaving the cage. I don't even remember the rest of the dinner. I think I paid. I think I drove. I know she touched my hand in the car, and I didn't pull away. But I felt the distance growing between us with every red light. That night, I lay in bed beside her, listening to the sound of her breath. She fell asleep faster than I expected. I kept looking at the ceiling, counting the years like cracks in the plaster. We met in a coffee shop. I was reading something pretentious, and she asked if I actually understood it. I said no, but it made me feel smarter to pretend. She laughed. I think that laugh hooked me before her eyes ever could. We built so much since then. Vacations. Road trips. Late-night drives just to find the perfect milkshake. Inside jokes that didn't make sense to anyone else. A shared Spotify account that still had a playlist titled Forever Starts Now. She wanted freedom. Just for a little while. And here's the part she'll never admit. She thought I'd say no. She thought I'd argue, beg, tell her I wasn't okay with it. She thought she'd get to play the role of reasonable explorer, someone pushing the boundaries of modern love while I sulked in the background like some outdated monogamist too scared to try. She never expected me to say yes. But that's exactly what I did. The next morning, I made us coffee. Set her mug beside the bed like I always did. She stirred. Smiled sleepily. Morning. Morning, I said. I've been thinking. Oh, if we're going to open the marriage, I said, we should probably talk about boundaries. Safety. Maybe even a shared calendar. She sat up slowly, blinking. Wait, you mean, you're actually okay with it? I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, I said. But you're right. We're still young. Still curious. Let's not die wondering. She stared at me for a long time, like she was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I wasn't. Not anymore. She wanted freedom. I was going to give it to her. But I'd be damned if I was going to sit in the shadows while she tasted adventure and called it growth. She didn't know it yet, but she hadn't opened a door. She'd opened a path, and I was already walking down it. The first few weeks were surreal. She was cautious at first, dipping her toes in slowly, pretending she was still testing the waters. But I saw the glow on her face the first time she came home late on a Friday. She said she'd gone to a gallery opening with a coworker and a few friends. I didn't press. She kept checking my face like she expected something. Accusation. Insecurity. Some emotional flare-up that would justify her guilt, or at least let her off the hook for feeling it. but I just nodded and went back to what I was doing. That's when I knew I wasn't going to be the one she expected me to be in this. She wanted an open marriage. She got one. She started going to yoga more often. Suddenly, she was wearing lipstick to the gym and getting waxed on random Tuesdays. And not for me. I've never cared about any of that. I liked her best with her hair messy and no makeup, wrapped up in my hoodie while we watched reruns of shows we'd already memorized. But now she had a glow that wasn't meant for me. And I didn't ask who it was for. Instead, I got busy. I wasn't interested in random flings or cheap revenge. I wasn't going to swipe my way through a list of strangers just to match her energy. I didn't want to lower myself to some emotional zero-sum game. If I was going to step out of the lines we'd drawn together, it was going to mean something. So I didn't look for a partner. I just started saying yes. Yes to the guys at work when they asked me to join them for drinks after hours. Yes to the solo hikes I used to put off. Yes to the book club I always said I didn't have time for, where I ended up having real conversations with people who weren't looking to keep score or play roles. And that's where I met her. Her name was Elise. She wasn't flashy or loud. She didn't try to impress anyone. She asked thoughtful questions, listened when I spoke, and didn't talk to fill the silence. She had kind eyes and a presence that calmed something in me I didn't even realize was anxious. She wasn't trying to be anything. That was what made her feel real. We talked about books, but we also talked about life, relationships, mistakes. She wasn't married, but she'd been through enough to understand the fine lines between growing up and growing apart. I didn't tell her much about my situation at first, but she knew something was up. One night after the meeting, we ended up walking a couple of blocks just to keep the conversation going. She stopped in front of her car and turned to me. "Whoever she is," she said gently, "you're already walking away from her. Whether you've admitted it yet or not." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. From that point on, we started meeting up outside the club. Not dates. Just dinner. Coffee. Talks in her car that stretched long into the night. No lines were crossed. Not yet. Meanwhile, my wife had started acting off. Like the high of her little adventures was fading. Her texts were shorter. Her attempts at conversation were more forced. There were fewer stories. Less sparkle. And I think she started to notice something she hadn't expected. I wasn't following her around emotionally. I wasn't checking in. I wasn't reacting. She wanted to know where I went Thursday nights. I said I had joined a group. Didn't give more. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I shrugged and said, "We agreed it was okay, didn't we?" Her face tightened at that. I could see the cracks forming. This was the moment she thought she'd start missing me, but I'd already begun missing myself a long time ago. And Elise? She reminded me of the version of me I used to like being. The intimacy I shared with Elise wasn't physical. Not yet. But it was honest. It was light. It made me feel like I could breathe again. At home, the atmosphere with my wife turned strangely performative. She started cooking dinner more. Wearing those pajamas I liked. Sitting closer on the couch. But the warmth wasn't there anymore. She was performing the part of a wife, not being one. And I was performing too. But not for her. I started journaling. Something Elise had encouraged me to try. "Just to get clear," she said. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. This wasn't a trial phase in our marriage. This was a quiet migration. She thought she was exploring something new, but I was rediscovering something old. Myself. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, she walked into the bathroom and leaned against the doorframe. "So, are you seeing someone?" she asked. I looked at her through the mirror. Toothbrush in my mouth. I rinsed, wiped my face, and turned to her. "I'm getting to know someone," I said. "Yeah." She blinked. "Do I know her?" "No," I said. "But I think I'm starting to." She laughed, but it wasn't real. "So this is a competition now?" "No," I said calmly. "This isn't a game. You asked for openness." I said yes. "I'm just living it." That hit her harder than I expected. For a second, she looked like she was about to say something, maybe lash out, maybe beg, maybe accuse, but she didn't. She just nodded, turned around, and walked away. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to follow. By the third month, she'd stopped calling it just a phase. At first, she framed it like a shared adventure, something we could learn from, grow through, come out stronger on the other side. But now she didn't talk about it at all. Like she wanted to quietly delete the file without leaving a trace. But some messes don't get erased. They stain. She tried to go back to normal. That was her big strategy. Pretend it never happened. Except everything had changed. She didn't know where I was some nights, and it drove her crazy. She started casually dropping questions, fishing without looking like she was fishing. Were you out again? Yeah. With the same person? I'd nod, keep my eyes on the book in my hand, and say nothing more. That silence used to belong to her. That power. That casual detachment. I didn't weaponize it. I just lived in it. And it unnerved her more than if I'd screamed. The truth was, I was still seeing Elise. We weren't sleeping together yet, not in the physical sense. But emotionally, I was all in. And I think Elise knew it. One night, Elise and I were sitting at her kitchen table, splitting a bottle of wine and laughing over a story from my college days, and she got real quiet. I asked what was up. She looked at me with those calm, knowing eyes and said, "You're still waiting for her to notice you've left." That one hit. She was right. Deep down, I think I wanted some recognition from my wife. Some late-blooming guilt or humility. Something that said, I see what I broke. But it wasn't coming. Instead, she became erratic. Petty. One day, she'd make breakfast for both of us, like old times. The next, she'd accuse me of being emotionally absent. "You're different," she said one morning, standing in the doorway in one of my old shirts. "You're cold." "I'm not cold," I said. "I'm just done pretending." The look on her face, it was the first time I saw fear. She thought she could pull me back. That our history, our routines, our shared Spotify playlists and vacation photos would be enough. But history only means something when you're still writing it together. She started talking about closing the marriage again. Just a reset, she said. To focus on us. I didn't react. I think that scared her more than anything. I wasn't fighting her. I wasn't resisting. I'd simply moved on. We were in the kitchen when she said it. The coffee machine was hissing in the background. She wouldn't look me in the eye. I want to pause it. Just take a break from this open thing. It's not what I thought it would be. I leaned against the counter, holding my mug. You want to go back? Yes. Don't you? I took a sip. I'm not sure there is a back to go to. She flinched. So that's it? You're just going to stay in this, whatever you've got going on? I shrugged. You said it was about freedom. I'm just living with mine now. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, staring at me like she didn't recognize who I was. Maybe she didn't. Maybe that's the part that hurt her most, realizing that I'd become someone she couldn't manipulate, couldn't predict, couldn't draw back in with a wink and an apology. But this wasn't a rebellion. It was clarity, and I was starting to see it everywhere. The house felt smaller now, like it didn't fit us anymore. Conversations were shorter. Eye contact rarer. The jokes we used to share now felt like borrowed lines from a script we forgot how to finish. One night, she reached for me in bed. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. She kissed me. I kissed her back. But it was like kissing a photograph. You recognize the face. You remember the feeling. But it's not real anymore. Afterward, she curled into me like she used to, but I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. It felt like closing a chapter out of obligation, not love. Elise had never asked me to choose. She wasn't demanding or expectant. That's what made being around her so effortless. And when I told her about my wife's attempt to close the marriage, she just nodded. I figured that would happen. You did. Of course. People only want openness when they believe they'll stay the center of the universe. The moment they're not, it becomes a threat. I smiled. You're wise. She grinned. I just pay attention. That's what it came down to. Attention. Elise listened to me. Saw me. Not as a role or a routine, but as a person. A man with dreams and wounds and laughter that came from real places. And my wife? She saw me as an anchor. Steady. Predictable. Always there. Until I wasn't. That weekend, I started looking at apartments. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed air. I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding my breath inside this marriage. How many of my own desires I'd suppressed just to keep things comfortable. She thought I was just playing along with her little experiment. She never saw that I was actually rebuilding my life, one step, one conversation, one late-night walk at a time. And now that I had something real, there was no going back. She started waking up earlier than me. Not for work. Just to be there, already moving around the kitchen when I walked in like she'd been up for hours. She'd make coffee and toast, sometimes eggs. She'd ask about my day before it started. Smile like everything was still normal. It was a performance. A desperate one. And I could see the cracks in her every time I didn't match her energy. She had this one line she started using, like a joke, but not really. Maybe we can start over. Like a first date. You and me. The first time she said it, I half smiled. By the fifth time, I didn't react at all. Because that's the thing about starting over. You can't do it if one of you already crossed the finish line and left the race. One night we were sitting on the couch, watching a movie we used to love. Something we'd seen a dozen times. She leaned her head on my shoulder halfway through, the way she used to. And I didn't move. But I didn't lean back, either. Her breathing slowed. She was trying to feel connected. I think she thought if we just acted like us again, we'd be us again. She didn't understand that the us she missed was built on trust. And the second she opened that door, she broke it. I wasn't angry anymore. That was the part she couldn't read. I think it unnerved her, the way I stopped reacting. I didn't fight with her. Didn't throw things. Didn't accuse. I just started living my life with less and less need for her in it. She followed me into the hallway one morning, still in her robe. I was thinking, she said, maybe we could take a trip together. Just us. Like we used to. Reset things. Where? I asked, just to humor her. Anywhere. The coast. Or the lake. Somewhere quiet. I could take some time off. I said. I'll think about it. She nodded like that was enough. Like it meant something was still there to save. That same evening, I signed the lease on the apartment I'd found. Small, clean, bright. Nothing fancy. Just space. My space. Elise didn't know yet. I wasn't rushing anything with her. What we had was intentional. It was rooted in honesty. And I was still sorting out the last threads of the life I was walking away from. That weekend, my wife planned a dinner. Candles. Wine. Even wore perfume I hadn't smelled on her in years. We sat at the table, just like we used to. And I watched her play the role she thought would win me back. She leaned in halfway through the meal. Rested her chin in her hand. I miss us, she whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized how tired she looked. Not physically. Emotionally. Like she was finally feeling the full weight of what she'd started. I know, I said. I did too. For a long time. Her eyes watered at that, and for a second, I thought she might finally apologize. Not just in passing, not just as a strategy. A real apology. The kind that doesn't expect forgiveness in return. But instead, she reached across the table and took my hand. I want to fix this, she said. I'll do whatever it takes. I pulled my hand away gently. I believe you, I said. But I don't think we're in the same place anymore. She frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm not angry, but I'm not yours, either. Her jaw clenched, just slightly. So what? You're just giving up? No. I'm letting go. She stood, her chair screeching against the tile. And what about us? 10 years. Everything we built. You're just walking away from that. No, I said softly. You walked away the day you said you needed more. I just kept walking. She didn't speak. Just stood there, staring at me like I'd stolen something from her. But the truth is, I'd only taken back what she threw away. That night, I packed a few bags while she pretended to sleep. She didn't ask where I was going. Didn't try to stop me. Maybe part of her thought I'd be back. But I wasn't going to look back, not this time. When I got to my new place, I didn't even unpack right away. I just sat on the floor in the middle of the empty living room, surrounded by silence that didn't feel hollow for once. It felt peaceful, like finally being able to breathe after holding it in for too long. I texted her 2 words the next morning. I'm gone. No explanation. No blame. No war. She wanted freedom. And now she had it. Just not the kind she imagined. It took her 3 days to reply. Not a phone call. Not a knock at the door. Just a text. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I didn't feel the need to say anything at all. There was a time when that message would have wrecked me. When I'd have gone over every word, trying to decode the tone, the meaning behind it. But now, it just felt small. I didn't answer. Not out of pettiness. But because I'd already said everything that mattered. In the days that followed, she sent more. Long, winding messages. Memory reels dressed up as apologies. Snapshots of our life together, spun into guilt-laced questions. Remember that cabin trip when it snowed and we danced in the kitchen? Remember when you held my hand at the hospital even though you hate the smell of antiseptic? How did we get here? The answer was simple. We didn't get here. She brought us here. She opened the door and expected me to peek out, get scared, and shut it again. Instead, I walked through it and kept walking. Her messages got messy after that. First the nostalgia, then the bargaining, then the bitterness. You act like I cheated on you. It was mutual. You didn't even try to fight for me. I made a mistake, and you made it permanent. But mistakes are what happen when you slip. She didn't slip. She planned. She tested. She chose. Every step of this was her choice. And I finally made mine. Meanwhile, my life was simpler, quieter, better. I unpacked slowly, built the apartment into something that felt like mine, chose furniture I liked, cooked meals I actually wanted to eat, filled the space with music, books, and sunlight. And Elise? She never pushed, never asked for labels or timelines. She just showed up, with presence, with laughter, with space. One evening, we sat on the floor eating takeout and talking about everything and nothing, and she looked at me with this calm certainty. "You feel lighter," she said. "Not just because you're out. Because you finally stopped waiting." She was right. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for her to change. Not for apologies that came too late. Not for closure I didn't need. I'd already found what I was looking for. Not in someone else, but in the version of myself I rediscovered when I stopped trying to make a broken thing whole. And that's what this was, really. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just clarity. A reset. She thought she could open our marriage for a while and close it when it stopped serving her. But what she never considered was that I might not want back in. She didn't just open the marriage. She opened the exit. And I walked out for good.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.